Good morning, guys. Once again, it is I, the chairman, bringing you another review of physical media. And so, over the weekend, uh, my boys at Diabolic across the river in New Jersey were nice enough to send me True Romance, the Arrow 4K limited edition. And I got the box here. And so, this was a bit of a surprise. It came really quickly. So thanks to them for sending it so quickly. And I did manage to put it in and watch a few minutes of it. And it does look great. I mean, I haven't watched the Blu-ray. I have the Blu-ray of it in a while, but just from my impressions of it, it certainly looks a lot better than that Blu-ray ever did. And so what else comes in the set is you have a poster, and I did post a picture of the poster on Facebook, but just to show it again, you have the theatrical version. Sorry, the poster that was in theaters, and then this one here, which especially done up for the this Arrow edition. And you have a book with several essays, and you have one that's called "I Think I Love You" by Kim Morgan. One is about Tony Scott, "You're So Cool." One is True Romance 15 Years Later, which was written for on the 15th anniversary of the film. And then the other one is a commemoration of Tony Scott by Edgar Wright, the director Edgar Wright. And so then you have pictures throughout. This happens to be the page where Edgar Wright is writing about Tony Scott. And it's kind of crazy to think that Tony Scott and Ridley Scott were probably the most prominent directing brothers who never directed together. Because you think of all the other directors, and they've all directed together, like the Russos, the Hughes brothers, the Coen brothers. Those guys come to mind, but they always work together. Whereas Ridley Scott and Tony Scott, they work separately, and they're quite their own men in terms of their directing styles and their techniques and their idiosyncrasies as directors. But anyway, so, and then in the case also comes lobby cards. So on the back is the same as picture, but then you got the mafia guys with Don Vincenzo, and then you got this scene where they're calling Clarence's friend Floyd. No, I'm sorry, not Floyd. Floyd is Brad Pitt's character, Dick, and the phone booth. And then you got this one in the elevator where Clarence is pointing the gun at the Elliot. And then you got another picture of Clarence, Alabama. And then you got the picture where they're in the suite, the hotel suite, where the big Mexican standoff is about to go down. Oh, another one of Clarence and Dennis Hopper, his father. Alright, yeah, so working my way through that, and like I said, I'm continuing to watch EE, the Taiwanese film directed by Edward Yang. And so far I gotta say, this film is kind of boring. It's long and slow, and the subject matter is like typical soap opera drama, Korean drama kind of stuff. The kind of the stuff that I'd imagine in Taiwan itself. If I have no idea what the reception of this film was like in Taiwan, but I have this impression that they might say this film is kind of boring, because it's like the stuff they talk about is like the subject of the film is like everyone's lives, you know, relationships, work, love, growing up, things like that. And I mean, the guy does do everything with a very polished artistic look about it. But I kind of feel like this film is emblematic of this thing I want to kind of rant about, which is the foreign film fallacy. And that is that uh, just by nature of it being a foreign film, that it becomes all of a sudden much greater, much more interesting, much more artistic, much more insightful, just of a higher class and of a higher dignified level than, say, an American film. And it's kind of this thing where in America we regard like European foreign films as being just automatically better because they just seem better. People are speaking a foreign language. They just have this more erudite, learned view of life and history and culture. And then it's kind of then also where the West views Eastern films in the same way. That, oh, just because this film came from the East, that, you know, they have this deep mystical understanding of the world and life, and that they just like the way they view things is just so more philosophical and insightful and at a level that can't possibly be comprehended by us Western heathens. But that's not the viewpoint of the filmmakers, the filmmaking community in the East. It's our view that, oh, we just all of a sudden put these foreign films up on a pedestal just by sake of them being a foreign film. And I'm not saying this film is bad. I'm just saying that, like, because we are only watching this one film, or Criterion, or whoever's making decisions about bringing this film over, we don't see the full picture of, like, the fact that, you know, there's just as many bad films made in foreign countries as there are here in the U.S. or, you know, the UK or Europe. We're just not seeing them because they're so bad that they're not getting the attention that they would otherwise have gotten. Like, if you go to, you know, any foreign film, you know, like any cinema in any foreign country, you know, they're playing like American films, but they're also playing locally produced films, and some of them aren't very good. Some of them are terrible. I mean, we've all watched like cinema from different countries, exploitation, horror, things like that, and we know some of those are pretty crappy films. So just imagine that, like, in any country where there's a significant film industry, there's going to be a lot of films made that just are terrible. And but because they're terrible, they're not getting any attention, and therefore not being distributed to the West or shown internationally. So we're getting like the best films from those countries, and so therefore our impression of those films is kind of skewed, or overall impression of the filmmaking quality of some of those countries is kind of skewed because we're only seeing the best. And so, I mean, I don't know if my hypothesis actually is valid or not. I don't know if it holds water, but that's just kind of my feeling. Is that we have this like fallacious opinion of foreign films simply because like we're only seeing a small cut of what's actually out there. And it's not the exact same example, but what I keep thinking of is how in the West everyone went nuts over Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. Whereas you have people like my parents, they'll say, this is like Saturday morning cartoon stuff in China or Taiwan. This is what kids read, you know. This is what they read as kids. This is like comic book quality storytelling, but it's been elevated to this magnificent, opulent, operatic level because it's directed by Lian Ang Lee, and it's got Chow Yun-fat, Michelle Yeoh, and, you know, Zhang Ji, and but it's only because these guys are putting the effort into turning what is essentially like the equivalent of you know, a popcorn comic book film into something grander. So it's just interesting that you just kind of have to keep that perspective in mind, that it's not always just because it's a foreign film that it's just something amazing, that you kind of have to dig deeper and understand that sometimes it isn't as great as you think it is. But anyway, so there's a couple other things I noticed in this film, and obviously as it continues, I do see more and more things in it that remind me of Taiwan. Um, but some of the things that are happening, I'm kind of not clear on why they are. Like, for example, you have the family with NJ as the father, and his wife is like kind of there, but then not there, and then she just disappears, and then his mother's in a coma, and his son's going off into all sorts of kind of weird things. It's just kind of like this odd side story of like what's going on with him, and I think he kind of like eyes this older girl at school, and he kind of likes her. And then the story with his daughter Ting Ting is that she acts as a go-between between the girl who lives next door, Lily, and her boyfriend who she's having problems with. And so the boyfriend wants Ting Ting to like keep giving her letters, sorry, keep giving Lily letters, and then eventually Ting Ting ends up going on with him, and then there's this stuff, and then Lily's mother is like sleeping with Lily's uh, music teacher, and just kind of weird things, um, and then the little brother who's Adi, whose wedding was at the beginning of the film, he's got this odd thing going on where he's like constantly broke, but then he lives in this nice looking apartment, and then his wife's pregnant, and then she has a baby, but then she's like way too skinny to have possibly just had a baby. I mean, yeah, that's not possible. She obviously didn't have the baby herself, being an actress, but she's way too skinny to have just had a baby in like a couple weeks. And what's weird is that in the film they have this party for the baby, and it seems like the baby was only born in like a couple weeks, whereas, or maybe not, but in Taiwan traditionally you have a full month party for the baby, because back in the old days, well, babies might not live to a month, so you didn't want to like all of a sudden have this party for a newborn and then oops, baby died. So then they wait a month to make sure. So like when my daughter was born in Taiwan, that's what we did. And so I'm guessing that's what this party. So there's this party that happens, but it's kind of weird because they still haven't named the baby yet. And I get it because bad horoscope. You read the horoscope, the Chinese horoscope, to figure out the appropriate name. Like that's what we did, but it just seemed kind of weird that they still hadn't figured it out. Because then in this story, in this party, this girl who was the Adi's like ex-girlfriend, who had shown up at the wedding and kind of crashed the wedding, then she kind of invites herself to this party, and then there's this fight ensues, and just people yelling at each other, and Adi's wife wants to kick her out. It's kind of typical, like just people yelling at each other. It's like you're watching this, okay, I know what's going on. Yeah, there's going to be drama, there's going to be this stuff going on, and I know a lot of people just like really yelling really loud in this film about things, and I don't know, it seems a little out of place, seems a little overboard, but you know, I've not seen that kind of yelling in Taiwan, but then again, I didn't grow up in Taiwan. I've only been there a few times, so I can't say for certain, but it just seemed a little kind of overboard. But anyway, I'll try to make my way through this film. I honestly, I don't know if I'm going to finish it because I got so much other stuff to watch. Probably know why I didn't really finish watching this film. Why I didn't watch this film when I first got it. But we'll see. So anyway, I'll let you know, and until then,